not saying that, but that's beautiful. Because, they owned the land together. It was not in the name of a person, but it was the name of the community. Okay, the first particular Anabaptist community, or the other few community names, they were there. They will have 10,000 acres of land and they cultivate together. Everybody works, everybody participate in sowing and harvest and weeding and manuring and all those things, and they all eat together in the commune. They have the dining room where people can sit together and eat. Their wives cook together, and another group will wash. They take turns each day, different groups, and they have their tailoring shops and they have their furniture shops and everything there. Everything is done there. They have their own schools. Up to 8th standard they basically teach, but now it's all being changed. But even the Amish people, even today, they teach their children only up to 8th standard. All their dresses were the same, they look same, Yeah. Those people will come to the towns on their, horse, buggies, and they will come. And you can see all of them all have, have black skirts and white blouses, and men black pants and white shirts. All their hair cut the same way for men. They will all have caps, and women will have their, head covering, head dress. They all look alike. They all look alike. Not very much different at all. But actually you can see those sympathetic, the eager eyes of those girls, see other children wearing colorful dress, and they look and you say, look at that, that sort of. But as they grow up, that enthusiasm, curiosity gone, and they all satisfied with this one. So worldliness is not there, no TV in their homes, no car in their homes, no electricity in their homes. People say that it's impossible to live in the 21st century without car and TV and all these modern gadgets. Who says? You go to the Amish communities, they live there and they are happier than anybody else. And they are healthier also than. Generally reported they have, the lifestyle diseases they don't have. Diabetes and hypertension and...
Where do you find this community?
Your chance of getting a girl from them is very dim. But if you want, you can try. You go travel either to Germany or to America, Canada, some of these countries.
You are now living.
Oh, yes. In America, I have seen many communities living without electricity. Without a car, without electricity, yes. Without running water. They draw their water.
There's a movie on there called, what is his name? Amish.
Yeah, you can go. They have nice restaurants. You can go and buy a meal. I bet, it will be enough for you to eat 5 times. You cannot finish that. We buy one meal, we can eat comfortably, and some leftover we can take home, Nice meal, fresh beef and, whatever you want, meat there. Nicest cheese, they make cheese there, their own, cottage cheese they make. Everything. Fresh fruits. We used to go to pick fruits from the Amish acres, the Amish gardens, You can climb, there are ladders they are provided. These trees are not very huge. The ladder will go to the top. You can climb, children, women, all can climb. You can sit on those ladders, eat as much you want, just like the Bible. But for what you take home, you have to pay. There are baskets, and one basket, so many dollars. You can. Strawberries, blueberries, all kinds of fruits. We used to pick for a whole year. It was nice. We'll go 3-4 times picking. You can go pick your beans, your okras, your corn, and everything they have, Fresh, they won't use any insecticide or anything. Only cow dung, horse dung and all that sort of. No artificial, fertilizers, no, only manures. And so it's good, it's possible. People say you cannot live, you can live.
They go to hospital.
Well, to be honest, I think they go to hospitals for, but they don't have to go to hospitals very, very frequently. They have their own natural remedies. When those remedies don't work, I think they go to. Yes. Brother Ravangar who came is a Mennonite. He's a Mennonite. He's not Amish, he's a Mennonite. People, they're good people, honest people, they're nice, friendly people, I wish, we borrow some of the principles, not everything, some of those principles. I'm not against using modern technology, but then too much dependence upon modern technology and, technology gives us both sides, the evil side and all. So we can be a little more.
Anabaptist time period.
This time period is the 15th, 16th centuries. 15th centuries. What I'm saying, 1536, 1525. These are the time periods. So the community life of Acts chapter 2 and 4 of sharing material things and living together practiced by them. Those in Moravia specially practiced this. The Moravian Mennonites are known for this community living. In 1533, a Swiss brethren minister called Jacob Hutter joined the Anabaptist movement and became the pastor of the church. Before he was burned on stakes in 1536, he had introduced a strict discipline of communal living. Each unit was called a brother estate, a Bruderhof in their language, brother estate. Today there are more than 100 such brother estates in Alberta, Canada. So there are people, plenty of people there. Yes. Once a member of this community go for higher studies or go for modern living, he has to leave. He has to sign up and exit. He cannot come back. He is not a part of that society. He won't get any inheritance or anything. If they marry a non-Mennonite, Amish girl or boy, it's over. They have to leave. That's the way it is. Somewhat like your the Parsis and the Jew, and thinking about the Christian group. Yes, that's what I was thinking about. But now they are changing, I think. No, they are not. Still
30-40 years
back.
20 years back.
I mean, their people are marrying from outside and all.
I changed.
The people can marry, but they cannot be part of their. Yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah, here also they have the freedom. Actually, they ask their young people, you want to go into the way of the world or you wanted to stay in the way of the Bible. If somebody say, I want to go the way of the world, then they are given freedom, leave. But not very many will leave. Very few. Because there is a satisfaction there, Basically, your needs are very minimal. Clothes, food, shelter. They are the basic needs. What Paul said, having food and covering. The covering is for both shelter and clothes, because the word used is applied for both tent or for clothes. A man's basic needs. We make our needs so complicated, right? Complex. Many of the things that we carry, why we need them? When you think about it, we don't need them. It all reduced us to, Our mothers used to wash clothes with their hands. Yeah. I still can remember my mother, gathering firewood, sometimes. Usually it was provided, but there are occasions when it ran out, she has to go and get some firewood from our own land and come and cook. Drawing water in my childhood, we didn't have electricity where we lived when I was a child. Only when I reached college age, the electricity came. So water was to be drawn. And even now, though electricity is there, someday for 2 or 3 days there will be no current. And so whatever water ran out. So what do you do? It's very fun. It's very fun to draw water and all that. And I enjoyed it very much, the drawing water. And milking cow, I have done it. It's fun. Milk buffaloes and cow and goats. What a fun it is. You killing chicken and dressing it. By the way, the only thing you dress and make it naked is with the birds. For everything else, you say something, you go, come dress up. It's the opposite. But you dress this chicken, you always take everything out. The development of language, it's very funny, why such things. But I remember doing that. It was fun. It was fun. These things, now what? You go to the, even you don't have to go, you call him and said, send 2 chicken. Just come in 5 minutes. And people are called the restaurant, some chili chicken. Yeah, it come and eat. Somebody said there is no personality for the food anymore. I mean, but the Amish people eat good food, I tell you that. Yes, they are good. So, persecution very soon started for the Anabaptists. Why? Because of their view of church, state and social life. The Catholics and the Lutherans strongly disliked them. Infant baptism was the universal practice of the church that time, with the exception of a minority. To Catholic, infant baptism was of great importance, as unbaptized babies are eternally lost. So this idea of not baptizing infants and rebaptizing those already baptized was strange, and it's a public repudiation of the teaching of the Lutherans and the Roman Catholics. So Anabaptists strongly, called for their opposition. Anabaptists refused to cooperate with the Catholic people. Viewed them as a revolutionary group dangerous to the security. The Catholics blamed Luther for such groups. That made the Lutherans to hate the Anabaptists. Very soon Anabaptists were persecuted by all Protestants and the Roman Catholic people. Isn't that sad? Lutherans, Zwinglians, Calvinists, Catholics all unloosed persecution upon the Anabaptists. They were imprisoned, fined, drowned, burnt at stakes, tortured and persecuted in all manners for crimes such as not paying tithe, not attending the church, not coming to Bible studies, etc. I mean their Bible studies, Thousands of Anabaptists were put to death. And it's very sad. Certain radical Anabaptists did a great blunder. They sought to set up an Anabaptist kingdom in Munster, Germany. That's what they have done. They wanted to set up an Anabaptist kingdom, and that's not part of the Anabaptist teaching, but a group. So Melchior Hoffman was an Anabaptist, an early follower of Martin Luther. He predicted that Christ would return to earth in 1533. A lot of people from Netherlands followed him, including John Matthies, a baker from Haarlem. Hoffman was imprisoned in Strasbourg and he died there. Matthies declared that he was the prophet Enoch, about whom Hoffman said would appear before Christ's return. Many followed him. He made Munster his headquarters, the headquarters of the Christ kingdom. Those in Germany and Netherlands followed him. Soon Munster was besieged by an army of Catholics and Lutherans. Matthies was killed in the battle, and another man, John of Leyden, took the charge. He introduced polygamy and assumes the title king in 1534. Anabaptists defended the city for a while, but finally they were defeated on June 24, 1535. Great persecution of the group followed. Their leaders were horribly tortured. So they make mistakes, blunders, and this happened in history over and over again. Some overzealous people who do not study God's word, but who gets visions and dreams and this and that, and who are drunk with love for authority or power. You know, they will do things that are contrary to even the Bible and common sense, and they then suffer. They, of course, call it all suffering for the sake of the kingdom of God. Were these people suffering it for the sake of the kingdom of God? I say no. Excesses and fanaticism described the Anabaptist movement, and for a while they lost their case. But under the guidance of a man called Menno Simon, that's from there the Mennonites come, Menno Simons, a Dutch reformer, a moderate group of Anabaptists began to flourish in the second half of 16th century. Menno Simons was ordained a clergy in the Roman Catholic Church. He began to doubt the doctrine of transubstantiation. He studied the Bible and found Roman Catholic wrong on many areas. In 1536, he left Roman Catholic priesthood and joined with the Anabaptists. He traveled widely throughout Netherlands, teaching and preaching and exhorting the followers. In course of time, Anabaptists were known as Mennonites. They were peaceful, industrious, prosperous, and highly respected people. Anabaptists were universally rejected during the Reformation, but the Mennonites and their offshoots are well respected all over the world today. You know, what a change. Because Menno Simons was a gentleman. With common sense, he studied Bible also. They still hold on to their basic views, but without fanaticism. In 1693, a division occurred in the congregation of the Swiss Brethren. Jacob Amen felt that the shunning of excommunicated members is a biblical command. You know, but others felt that this applies only to the Lord's Supper. When a person is excommunicated from a church, he should not be welcome to the Lord's Supper, but they could go for his wedding or, you know, for other social activities. But Jacob Amen felt that no, excommunicated means he is to be considered as a heathen, and tax collector, means people who are hated by the Jewish people most. So following the differences of opinion, the followers of Jacob Amen set up rigorous church discipline and maintained a unique traditional way of life. They live in communes and is given a new name, that is the Amish community that we were talking about. They are found many parts of America, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, and also many parts of Canada. You know, they were there. So the Reformation movement definitely has some positive elements and some negative elements.
Uncle,
Yeah.
spelling of that
Amish, A-M-I-S-H, Amish. Amish.
There's no L? It's not A-L?
No. No. Only A-M-I-S-H, Amish. Yeah, I'm sure. Yes. Yeah, and L cannot come there. How that will come? Amlish? No, it cannot come. So now we come to Reformation in Western Europe. I just wanted to rush, and this is history, but how much of this thing needed for you, that's a question I myself have. So I will just read what I have, read. That way time could be saved actually. In the southern part of France, the Waldenses had great influence. Besides, three great men influenced the Reformation in France. They are Lefevre, L-E-F-E-V-E-R-E, Lefevre, Luther and Calvin. Lefevre in 1512 published a commentary on Romans. In that commentary, Lefevre denied that good works can earn salvation. He taught that man is justified by faith. He wanted the Frenchmen to know the Bible, so he translated the New Testament into the French language. He preached Christ and the message of salvation to people. He is called the Little Luther. They called him the Little Luther. So he was the leader of the Reformation movement in France. However, Lefevre and his men had no intention of breaking away from Rome. They wanted to correct the errors of Rome, which actually Luther also only wanted. He never wanted to leave the Roman Catholic Church. He only wanted to correct the evils of the Roman Catholic Church. But you know that it never happened in history. Never happened. Any person who tried to reform a denomination that was well established, that person has to go out. He just cannot do that. Even that's continuing even today. It just doesn't happen. However, Luther influenced, France. All his books up to October 1518 were imported to France by some of his followers. 2 years later, a student in Paris said, "In all France, no book was sold more copies than Luther's books." Luther's books were written in Latin and would be read only by the learned. But soon those books were translated into French. The Catholic Church and Catholic theologians were alarmed. They began to publish counter tracts and books. The Greek New Testament of Erasmus and the French New Testament of Lefebvre was condemned as heresies in France. And Erasmus, all his life till death, he remained a very faithful follower of the Roman Catholic Church, but yet the Erasmus Greek Bible was instrumental in the hands of all those people for translation, because otherwise they didn't have a Greek Bible. But they could not stop Reformation. Merchants and artisans were the early converts to Protestantism. King's sister Margaret was a Protestant, and she encouraged Bible classes, the King of France. Luther's ideas continued to be published in large number. Zwingli and the other men also influenced France. Protestantism in France was weak. It was a small protest. Farel was an influential man. He encouraged a cousin of Calvin to make a French translation of the New Testament. He was a great scholar. His name was Olivetan. So Olivetan made an excellent French translation of the New Testament. 1536 was the year when great change was made in France. 1536, Erasmus and Lefebvre both died. Their death marked the end of Renaissance. We know the Renaissance period. With their death, that period has come to an end. But the same year, Calvin published his Institutes, and he began his success in Geneva. With the publication of the Institutes in French, the French people accepted Calvin as the leader of Reformation. Almost the fact that Luther was forgotten. Luther lost the title, the father almost, because the Institutes was such an eye-opener. Luther only talked about salvation by faith, by grace, sola scriptura, sola fide, sola gratia, and sola Christi. They were the pillars of Lutheranism. But John Calvin came, he went far beyond. He has just opened the scriptures. The 5 points of Calvinism, for example, tulip, they're very, so systematically teaches. 1599, Protestant churches in France held a synod in Paris. This synod adopted a creed known as Gallic Confession. This synod organized Protestant churches in France in large number. Calvin provided the model. Hundreds of churches were formed with ministers and elders. Around the time, Protestants in France began to be known as Huguenots. That's a name in history they are known. They are not called Protestants anymore. They are called Huguenots. No more as Lutherans or Calvinists. The Huguenots were more noble people from the royal family and rich people, in France, as opposed to other countries, the ordinary people, the middle class people. But in France it was an exception. It is the rich and the educated who are more, attracted to. Maybe the reason is the institutes. The learned people read it and understood it, Luther published it more simply for the folks, He wrote and spoke the ordinary man's language. Calvin spoke the elite man's language. So there was a difference. Both are necessary. You cannot leave any group unreached.
But when you said that France, there was a persecution to
coming up.
Calvin has to.
Yes. Calvin has to run and all that. Then Calvin came and established it. In Netherlands, the Brethren of the Common Life had great activities in Netherlands. They established many schools. These schools gave excellent training in Christian faith. John Wiesel was trained in these schools. He, like Luther, attacked indulgences and taught justification by faith. The writings of Luther spread in Netherlands. He was held a great example of faith. However, Reformation in Netherlands was divided as Lutherans, Zwinglians and Calvinists. They had no unified leadership. John Calvin became a great influence in Netherlands, just as in France. By 1550, Calvin's institutes began to be circulated in Netherlands. Many students from Netherlands, went to Luther's University of Wittenberg for studies. But now they went to Germany. All Protestants saw Luther as an initiator of Reformation. However, everyone now saw Calvin as the spiritual father. Yes. In 1561, the church in Netherlands written up Statement of Faith. Guido, Guido, I think that's how it's said, Guido de Bres, B-R-E-S, gave leadership to this movement. This is known as the Belgic Confession of the Netherlands Conference. Another man translated the Heidelberg Confession into Dutch. All these times, Charles V, who was the Prince of Netherlands, was persecuting Christians. The persecution was so severe that lot of people left Netherlands and went to Germany. They found the church in Geneva as the model. With creeds, psalters and the church organizations, the Reformed Church in Netherlands was one of the most well-organized church in all France. In all Europe. Okay, Reformation in Scotland, 1557 to 1570. You know who brought Reformation to Scotland? Generally, the name that we hear most is John Knox. John Knox, a great man. But before John Knox came, definitely the waves of Reformation came to Scotland. Germany, France, Netherlands, Italy, Switzerland were the most culturally advanced countries in Europe. Spain, Portuguese, Hungary, Poland, Ireland, Scotland were the backward countries. The light of the gospel has not reached these places. Roman Catholicism was the dominant. Scotland was poor and backward. It was ruled by a weak king, and feudal landlords were fighting one another. And the Roman Catholic clergy was more corrupted than any other anywhere else. During 15th century, universities were established in St. Andrew, Glasgow and Aberdeen. However, they could not be compared to other good universities of Cambridge, Oxford and all the other ones. Rumors of great things happening in Germany reached Scotland. Many young people visited Germany and Luther's University at Wittenberg. When they returned, they brought the seed of Reformation and the books of Luther to Scotland. By this time, Tyndale and Coverdale English translation of the Bible was available in circulation. The early Protestants met for worship and Bible study in private homes. Very soon, Calvin's image overshadowed that of Luther in Scotland also. The transition from Lutheranism to Calvinism took place under George Wishart, W-I-S-H-A-R-T, George Wishart. However, God had another man, John Knox, as his man. John Knox was born in Scotland between 1505 and 1515. There is no exact date. He received a university education and was ordained a priest. In 1547, the French fleet captured St. Andrews and had John Knox as a prisoner. For 19 months, he labored as a galley slave. You know what galley is? Okay. In the olden days, they didn't have diesels and steamships and all. They had, the oarsmen will, in the galley, they will do that. So he was a galley man. And they tortured Knox and compelled him to worship Mary. They forced him to worship Mary many times. He responded, He said, go throw it at the face of the Pope, He will make statements like that. These are Roman Catholics, So they were all the more angry. After the release from the galleys, 19 months, he went to England. He was there for 5 years. Here he was to help Archbishop Cranmer to formulate the 42 articles of the Protestant Creed adopted by the Church of England. Later it became the 39 articles. Cranmer was appointed as chaplain and to indoctrinate the clergy. From England, John Knox went to Geneva. He was impressed by the teachings of Calvin and adopted his system.